Listen to timely advice from experts as we discuss all things leadership and technology. You'll get the inside scoop on better business practices, from making the most of your technology to leading a company with your head and heart. Pull up a seat with Marco CEO Jeff Gow and President Doug Albrechts. Let's Tech.
Welcome to today's episode of Let's Tech. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that if you're not thinking about it, you probably should. We're going to be talking about attracting and keeping good IT talent, and perhaps even where you might want to augment it. My guest today, one of my very good friends, worked together, actually ran the business together for coming up on 25 years. We've had a good run together, haven't we, buddy?
Yeah, we have.
Also, beyond the work part of it, we get a chance to spend some time together. And in fact, last night we played a little pickleball.
Yeah, we did.
I think I won one and you won one, if I recall.
I think so.
Right. So anyway, I'd like to introduce my friend, the gentleman that's helped run this business and has just done a terrific job and contributed a lot to our organization over the years in many, many ways, and is very qualified to talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is attracting and keeping IT talent. His name is Jonathan Warrey. He's our Chief Operating Officer, and as I mentioned earlier, coming up on 25 years. So welcome, Jonathan. Good to see you here. And you and I worked together here in our St. Cloud office for, 15, 16 years?
Yeah, it was like 14 years. Yeah.
14 years. Mm-hmm. And then you moved where? Where are you now?
Yeah, I moved back to the Fargo, North Dakota area because that's where my wife Amy and I are from. And Marco had expanded up there, created an opportunity to go into one of our new markets and try to make a difference. And
a difference you did make. It's been fun building that out, hasn't it?
It has been, yeah.
And so what went from kind of a small operation there to a pretty significant part of our business. So again, thanks for doing that. Really do appreciate it. But along the way, you had an opportunity to help build out the business. You had an opportunity to work with many, many IT organizations and in the back offices related to those. So pretty vast experience in working with IT decision makers.
Yeah.
So today as we talk about this whole idea of the IT department, the whole idea of the IT decision maker, because that's our client. I've talked about that before. But in doing so, we as an IT service provider and our customer that utilizes the services, we kind of play different roles here. And today we're going to talk about the, quote, IT department. So what do you think surprises organizations most when it comes to IT talent today? It's a little bit more complex, I think, than people think, but I think they're getting to know that. So when you think about what surprises people a little bit, what kind of does when you think about that?
Yeah, the complexity and that IT touches most parts of their business these days. It used to be your computers and your accounting software, and then your copiers start going on the network, your phones start going on the network. Now today it's HVAC and door access, and everything's running on the network. And so you need to be able to manage your vendors that provide that to you, and you need people that understand how you impact your customers with your applications, your information. And that all has to weave together, and you got security now outlining all of that. So that's complex.
I think we used to sometimes think about, we'll get an IT person, and that person they'll take care of everything IT, right? And at one time that, like you said, it meant a couple of things, maybe compute, probably didn't even include a phone back then or print or anything like that. So the job itself has gotten very, very complex, and it's not a task that one person can do. So when we think of IT too, a lot of times we'll think of a person that come to mind. And I can think back to when we had an IT manager here at Marco, and it was a name, it was a person, right? That was the go-to person. How do they have to think as kind of a business person as part of that responsibility? I've seen that evolving a little too. Have you get what I'm talking about there?
Yeah. So when we talk about our customers, the IT decision maker, which is often that might be the technical person, often reports up to the finance department, might report up through an owner because of the budgeting requirement. And so good IT planning involves knowing what things cost, knowing how to manage those costs, maybe having a vendor network that helps you manage those costs. So that has become even more critical as the IT department has so much of an organization's cost, G&A costs, frankly.
It sure does.
Yeah.
We even talked about at one time, we'd talk about a black hole of spending.
Mm-hmm.
And spending could be stuff that we buy. It could be people that we employ. It could be projects that don't go so well. And so when we talk about the IT decision maker, really have had to become business people to properly do that job and be a part of a leadership team, doesn't it? I mean, there's really
Absolutely.
a business acumen is really becomes a big part. Because some of those budgets, and because we're in the IT space and we get to talk to a lot of IT decision makers and C-level decision makers, there are IT budgets. There are things like me as the CEO, I kind of go, that's a big expense. Are we spending our money right? I mean, how can I be assured of that, or can't I? Big budgets, big dollars.
Yeah.
Not well understood
Yeah.
by the C-level people.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm in the IT business, and it gets a little bit suspect to me when we're talking about ERP systems and payroll systems and network systems and remote access and security.
How much our internet costs? How much our phone system costs? Yeah.
Because I think this is a big concern for our customers.
Yeah.
And how do you talk about this whole little bit about the budgeting and the costs and the investments and there's a lot that goes into that package.
Well, you need to trust your people. They need to prove competence. They need to have business acumen. That's one. You need to benchmark oftentimes against what your peer companies are doing.
Good idea.
And then you actually need to, hey, you know what? There's a lot of there are a lot of resources out there. You need to select your vendor community carefully that have good reputations, that can prove out a return on investment for their recommendations, and really understand how it all meshes together. I think it's to the business acumen you spoke about, and the recommends they make should improve your business. I mean, we're always inflicting change on our people with IT, and change management is important, but did we make the business better by this IT investment? And initially, sometimes you might not think it, whether you're putting in a new CRM system, a new ERP system, a new phone system or video system. Give it 90 days, then look back and go, was that worth a good investment? And so the right IT staff over time has a winning record on that.
Let's talk a little bit about, the department itself, what it might look like. Because what started out like at one time with some of the things you mentioned, sure, you had an accounting application and you had compute, you maybe had print. That role changes. But along with that role, so did the people playing on it. Tell me a little bit about size, scope, scale.
Sure. We probably look at it like we've got strategic IT talent and we've got horizontal IT talent. And strategic would be, hey, they really know our applications. They know how to get reporting out of that for us. That's important data so that we can run the business. For us, it's how we invoice our customers or put service calls in there or track the orders. You need people that really can get that info and make sure it's accurate and secure. Then the horizontal stuff, it might be your storage. It might be your phone systems. It might be your audiovisual. Those are horizontal things that every customer needs so you get access to that information. And so you actually have to have both, or you have to have vendors that help you provide that. But it's kind of how you break it out, strategic versus horizontal.
And I think sometimes, and if I've heard it once, I've heard it many times from friends of mine. I even say it myself sometimes is, geez, do we have to internalize everything? Because these things can kind of grow. And when do you decide if it's a good idea to bring it internal or maybe a good idea to augment your team? Because we do that too, even though we're in the business. I mean, how do you see that? Like, do I internalize it and build a larger team? Do I outsource it because it's project-based? How you got any thoughts on
throughout our customer base, we see all ends of the spectrum on that. Probably a good question to ask is this revenue driving for us? And is it super impactful to our customers? If so, a lot of times you got to internal that because it's proprietary. It might be part of your intellectual property. If it's something that is a platform so we can run our applications, might be something you outsource to somebody that does it dozens of times and gets really, really good at it. And so those are a couple of ways I see our customers make decisions on that, strategic versus horizontal or in-source versus outsource.
Sure. And sometimes they have projects. It's got a point in time, right? We're going to install a phone system, right?
Putting new wireless in for broader and faster access.
Yep. Good thing
Might
to
not
outsource,
insource
right?
that. Yeah, you probably wouldn't insource that because you're going to do it once every 4 years.
Well, what about, talent? Very difficult to hire people, it appears, in certain levels of technology. I can get maybe an IT generalist is a little bit easier sometimes to get, because we're talking, some of the more entry-level horizontal things that we do. And then if I go up that importance or significance food chain a little bit to the top levels of strategic in my industry, what are ways that you see people hire? Or what are some thoughts about attracting? Or what are your thoughts about keeping? How do I get IT people onto my team?
You know, if it's not in your core business, which it isn't for many of our customers, it can be a challenge. And a lot of times you get exports out of the accounting department because they're typically good at some of those same skill sets. We've seen that a lot. They morph out of accounting and they go into IT, or maybe they used to run the service department. They really get the service application. And so they become the strategic specialist on that because they know how to get the information out and run it. A lot of times technical people will recruit themselves. They have a peer group and they're going, you'd love to work here. I mean, you wouldn't believe how great it is here. And they recruit their people in that
That's
peer
a good
group.
one. We see
really
that happen quite a bit,
really
don't
is.
we? Yep.
And you want to be the type of place where technical people recruit them, their friends and network to come work for you.
Because that's a good thing.
But it is a challenge. You know, if let's say you're in I'll just use the trucking industry.
Sure.
Boy, that's so critical that you run your load management software effectively. You might not need to insource all the people that run the computers, but you need to insource that talent that really knows your business and that software, let's say. So usually in retention there is, do they see career opportunities for themselves? That's super key to keeping
That
people.
really is. And it doesn't seem to matter if you're recruiting accountants or salespeople or IT people. Exactly what you just said, I think, is critical. Is you have to have some career opportunity for them a little bit, don't you?
And growth does create that.
Yep.
And I know not everybody out there wants to grow, but it's been key for us at Marco because that does create opportunities. And you can be doing something different in a few years, but hopefully still utilizing your skills and building more. That's what employee bases want.
And IT people seem to like certifications. They like commitment to that. They like, because the dynamics of it, in order to keep their saw sharp, you're investing in those people, aren't you? But it's just like, really, sometimes we overcomplicate it, I suppose, because we think of it as it's unique hiring IT people. But when you really think about it, it's important to hire IT people, but it's important to hire accounting staff or sales staff, reception staff.
Sure.
Right?
HR professionals, engineers. Yeah.
And it's some of those same fundamentals, isn't it? So when you think about the best technical talent, and you go, gee, I'm thinking about some of the best people I know in it, and don't name names. I suppose on best you can, as long as you don't go to the other side. But what are some of the things these people have in common?
Good problem solvers, good planners, good communicators. I know that sounds simple, but those are what you see, and you go, hey, you're going to deal with problems all day long. That's kind of what technology is. There's a lot of issues that happen. Can you solve problems? Can you provide a good level of service to people, even empathy? And can you communicate well and plan? You can do that. We can almost teach you any of those skills. I mean, obviously, if you're a brilliant technical mind, that helps. But to be a really good IT person, you need those other skills that make people better at their job.
You mentioned communication, and they get a bad rap sometime. IT people do for not being maybe the best communicators, probably because they talk at a pretty high level and use a lot of acronyms.
Yeah, I think good IT people today need that. Hey, we got this. We're going to tackle this problem together. Once we install or implement this, it's going to be a better outcome so you can do your job better. The ability to actually execute on that builds confidence in IT people, I think.
Good summary, because I agree with you on that. The contemporary IT person is a good communicator today. Just like any profession, that's part of the skill set that goes with it. Who is the customer usually of the IT decision maker, IT department? What does their customer kind of look like? Sometimes it's me, I suppose, and sometimes it could be our customers. They got a lot of customers to serve inside an organization.
Yeah, a ton of stakeholders. Yeah. And so many times they're using a vendor to do something for them, and so they have to interpret what the vendor's saying back to the organization. That's a key skill set.
Sure, yep.
But sometimes it's a business unit. Hey, we're updating our direct deposit software in our payroll. Ooh, that's high profile inside of a company. Hey, did we get paid every other Friday? And you go, boy, who's the stakeholders there? It's actually all the employees, but the HR department's going to take the heat. So can they speak the language of the HR department? Can they set the expectations? Can they plan? That'd be an example. That's not somebody that maybe sits at the keyboard and fixes something, but they're deploying this change management. In that particular case, it'd be the business unit.
Good example. And the reason I ask that question as we talked about communication, how important it's become. Sometimes the customer is a salesperson and we're implementing a CRM. Sometimes it's an HRIS system and it's touching all the employees, but we're focused on the HR department. To your point, the different levels of communication based on the profiles of each of those different departments and the people that are in them can be quite vast. So the skill set in the communication ranks becomes kind of a pretty important piece of that overall skill set of that IT decision maker, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I know I'm not supposed to put my Marco hat on too much on this one, but you talk about our 220 salespeople and our 600 technical staff, and you go, their ability when we're going to install a new copier, a new phone system, a new network somewhere, our doc management software, we're going to do shred services for them. Our ability to communicate what the impact to their team is going to be and then schedule it and then follow through and execute, then survey them to see if anything went wrong. You know, that's part of the system. And then if we did do something wrong, we better fix it for them. You know, that's actually part of a whole comprehensive sales service approach. And really, it should be the same in a hospital system or a county government or a financial institution.
What does good look like when we evaluate an IT department, because we get a chance to do it so often, not formally, but informally to some degree?
I think good looks like when the IT department or the individuals in the department actually understand, they listen to what the business needs, and that's what guides their decision making. Like, hey, we got to be able to respond to our customers faster. Just made that up. Or we actually have to be more accurate in our order processing. Or people need mobility around this office because they're moving around more often. Like when good IT people listen to the needs of the business and then they plan around that and implement solutions that everything they do is trying to make the business better. And I use business universally. It could be a school district. It could be anything. That's what good IT looks like to me. Not a project to do a project. It's to really meet the needs of the business and even anticipate what the future challenges are going to be so you can plan accordingly for that. Good listening. I mean, imagine that. Good listening and being tuned into the business. I love when maybe you might meet with a sales department and the IT is listening to what they need. I know one particular CIO that does that. And then he makes the vendors line up with that and say, if that's not going to help our business, don't talk to me about that. I only want to hear about things that are going to help our business. So that's a good challenge that many of our customers lay down for us.
It's a good practice. You're talking about best practices in there and paying attention to the functional areas and listening and collaborating with vendors for good outcomes and collaborating internally with all those customers. You know, I could see that. And sometimes I think what happens inside organizations, and I've from the outside looking in, because I spend some time in IT departments too, is when they are a true business person and they're looking out for the organization first, not their own personal gain to get promoted maybe, or maybe not their own department as much as they are, as you said, delivering support to their internal customer and ultimately to their external customer as well. So having that well-rounded talent, having the vision, the peripheral sight across the organization seems to be pretty important and pretty key. So Jonathan, when you think about your role over the years, and it's been quite involved, of helping to attract people to our company and keep them here at our organization. And we all have those challenges, whether you're in the IT business or you're in the healthcare business or a school district, as you mentioned, different types of customers. What are some of the things that you think have been helpful for us?
I think that there's a lot of green grass out there, and our job is to keep ours green.
Good one.
And I think we do work hard at that. I talked to some of our employees in anticipation of this topic, and it was kind of neat to hear that, because I'll get involved when people are going to leave potentially, or they're considering other opportunities, and I know you do too, and we have conversations with them. At that point, sometimes it's too late, and we're a sizable organization with a lot of talented people that get recruited by organizations, many times by our clients, and but here's kind of some themes that I think you have to have as an organization to be able to retain really good people. And one of them said, I like how that we keep changing, evolving, and adapting. Sometimes it drives me nuts, but I know we have to change to stay relevant. I go, God, that's a good one. That kind of validates why we strategize and why we have to pivot sometimes. Someone else said, I like working with other techs who like to solve customer problems. So they got this peer group of like, hey, we're in this together. I can bounce this off of you. They like that peer network. Someone else said, I feel like it's part of my duty to keep this great culture moving forward, and they go, hey, I feel like I have to foster this. And he means like we celebrate our wins. We celebrate a good customer engagement. We celebrate a good survey response. And we've really tried to drive that.
Part of the culture even.
That our founders started and you helped foster, and we all have to continue to foster that. Somebody else said, I like how Marco, we just do things right for our employees and our customers time and again. And he goes, I've been in organizations where that wasn't the case. And so it just feels right. And you go, okay, I know that sounds like mom and apple pie and,
sure.
But those, that kind of validates some of the things you try to do. Because we're going to have conflicts and we get judged on how we deal with those. One other person said, I like investing in my team members. I like spending time in the field with them. We go, and as a manager, and I go, that's exactly how you should feel about that,
Yep.
So that when your employee talks to you about how do they grow their skills, you can actually give them good answers. You can give them tools to do that. And he leads some of our best technical staff, and I know they feel valued being on his team. So those are things that any organization can apply. I do feel that's why some of our good people have stayed and built careers here.
And then maybe even recommend to their friends and family.
That's right. That's right. I love when they go, hey, you know what? This person used to work with me here. They're applying here. You should really consider them.
Sure.
And if that's a good employee that's saying that, I love those opportunities for us.
As we went through our dialogue today, and we were talking specifically about attracting IT talent because it gets a lot of emphasis in recruiting departments and our customers and even for ourselves. We think it's unique. But when you start thinking about what the attributes are that attract and keep people here, they're kind of the same. There's nothing profound here, really.
No, you could swap IT with sales or accounting or legal or HR, and you go, a lot of the same fundamentals apply. They really do.
And I think that's important for our listeners, too, is there's nothing overly unique about what we're talking about today, but it's just a reminder. If you build out a good culture that attracts people in general, across all functional areas, if you build out a good culture that respects career paths and opportunities to grow, and where you can't meet those, maybe they have to grow right outside of your organization. And sometimes that happens. I think another piece of this is, and if you can't, as a smaller organization, even as larger organizations, if you need to outsource to firms like a Marco or whatever the industry-specific provider might be in your particular industry, that's not a bad thing. And so the fundamentals really are the same across most functional areas. Executing on it, of course, is always the key. But today, as we talk about attracting and keeping IT talent, build a good culture and they will come and they will stay. Again, Jonathan, hey, thanks again for being here. I always like to spend time with you socially and professionally, of course, and really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I enjoyed it. And we always like talking about things we've worked on in our business and how it applies to our customers' businesses. And I hope people got something out of it.
Good. It's fun today. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of Let's Tech. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe. And if you like what you heard today, go ahead and leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. So thanks again for tuning in to another episode. Until next time, let's tech.